Dark Souls is one of the best franchises ever made, no one is questioning that. Dark Souls series is top notch all the way through from DS1 to DS2 to DS3. Something that's been debated since the dawn of time would be which is the best one. And in today's video I aim to answer this question, so sit back, relax, grab some popcorn if you want to, and enjoy as I explain why Dark Souls 3 is the best Souls game ever made. Dark Souls 3 released back on the 24th of March 2016, and as of February 2023 is the last Dark Souls game, and in my opinion, the best. Dark Souls 1 is normally credited as the best in the series, mainly due to its insane intricacy. Firelink looks like a starting area, but is in fact a massive hub area which loops back to places you were like 10 hours ago. Like the shortcut from Undead Parish to Firelink, Valley of the Drakes to New Londo to Firelink. And while this was a great feature, it was not returned in Dark Souls 3. The more linear level design present in Dark Souls 3 is made up for by the great bosses back to back to back to back to back. In Dark Souls 3 you play as the
Ashen One.
You rise from your ashen grave, reborn as Unkindled, and almost as soon as you start, multiple NPCs tell you of how worthless you are. You see Unkindled are the backup of the backup, people who failed even to be cinders. One such example would be Hawkwood the Deserter.
Well, you're not alone. We Unkindled are worthless. Can't even die right. But we're talking true legends, with the metal to link the fire. We're not fit to lick their boots.
With this whole Ashen One and Unkindled situation going on, it brings about a true feeling of despair, which is present in previous games but is not as strong. While this feeling of despair and worthlessness is seen in the previous Dark Souls games, it's not as strong. In Dark Souls 3, you are beyond worthless. You're worse than undead. You're not even fit to be bloody cinders. The goal of Dark Souls 3 is to return the Lords of Cinder to their thrones, whether they wish it or not. The equivalent in Dark Souls 1 would be the player character. You become a Lord of Cinder in Dark Souls 1 after you kindle the fire, sacrificing yourself. That's assuming you go with the kindling the fire ending, not the dark ending. Starting class wise, all the classic classes from Dark Souls 1 and 2 return, those being the Knight, Mercenary, Warrior, Herald, Thief, Assassin, Sorcerer, Pyromancer, Cleric and Depraved. Personally I like going for Deprived, but that's just because I'm a massive fan of Soul Level 1, and after beating Soul Level 1 DS3 I have to say it added a lot more to the overall experience. If it is your first time playing DS3, I wouldn't recommend going for Deprived, as it adds a lot more challenge to the game and it sort of brings back that first experience. So if you play Deprived later, you'll get that second first experience. It's hard to explain, but if you've played SL1 you'll know what I'm talking about. The level design all throughout Dark Souls 3 is a masterclass on how to design levels, and is just so bloody amazing. I love the levels so much. And while not as interconnected as its predecessors, it has a charm that in my opinion is strongest in Dark Souls 3. My favourite area has to be from the Ring City DLC. The Ring City is a gilded city located at the very edge of the world with walls as tall as mountains. City given by Gwyn the Lord of Cinder eons ago to the Pygmies and the First Men. At face value this was a kind act, but in true Dark Souls fashion it was of course a bloody lie. The beauty of the Ring City truly shines like the sun, with its vastly different areas and enemies that, like a lot of things in From Software's game, is terrifyingly beautiful. As always, the story and lore is amazing in Dark Souls 3, which is no surprise considering that every game From Software has ever made over the last 15 years has reached critical acclaim in part due to its masterfully crafted story. In the channel's history, I've only ever done Elden Ring lore videos, but if you want to see some Dark Souls 3 or any of the From Software game lore, then please let me know down below. Bosses are at the centre of all From Software games, and Dark Souls 3 is no exception. Something that is only present in Sekiro would be the ability to replay bosses after defeating them, and while Dark Souls 3 doesn't have this, with it being the shortest of the Dark Souls games, the way to the top tier boss isn't that far and can be reached in a relatively short time, which adds a lot to the replay value of the game and adds a lot to the quality. The late game bosses of Dark Souls 3 are some of From Software's best bosses, and don't even get me started on the quality of the DLC and its bosses, they are truly phenomenal. My favourite of them's got to be Gale the Slave Knight.
What? Still here? Hand it over, that thing, your dark soul. For my lady's painting.
I know we've already talked about the DLC a little bit, but I want to expand on that a little bit. There are 2 DLCs in DS3, those being Ashes of Ariandel and The Ring City. These 2 are masterpieces on how to craft a DLC, and in my opinion, Dark Souls 3 has the second best DLCs, the first being Bloodborne of course. The bosses in the DLC are incredible, the level design is incredible, the enemies are incredible, the weapons are incredible, the design is incredible, everything is incredible, and helps transcend a masterpiece to something even more than a masterpiece. Don't really have a word to describe the DS3 DLCs, they're just incredible. They transcend masterpiece, and I think the only one that can really compare would be Bloodborne's DLC, The Old Hunters. While From Software's games are heavily, at their core, PvE centric, the thing that has truly helps these games continue going year after year would be the PvP. While Dark Souls 3's PvP is a lot less active than it was back in 2016, it is still active enough to have enjoyment in it. Personally, I love Dark Souls 3 combat, and while at times it can be hard to find people to play with, when you do, I always have a blast. Dark Souls 3 has a lot of competition. I've seen a lot of criticism towards it. Not as much as Dark Souls 2, mind you. I wouldn't be surprised if that game needs bloody therapy due to the trauma it got induced with by the community. Regardless of the treatment towards Dark Souls 3, it is in my opinion the best Souls game. If you haven't tried it already, I promise you won't regret it. Oh wait, you thought you had a choice? You will play Dark Souls 3. You will. I know where you and your family lives, Wantabow Lane, apartment block A, flat number 5, Albuquerque, New Mexico. What's gonna be, Dark Souls 3 or your family? Sadly everyone, that brings us to the end of the video. I hope you have enjoyed. If you did, please consider leaving a like and subscribe as it truly helps the channel. I really loved making this video, so I hope I have convinced you that Dark Souls 3 is the best Souls game. Hopefully I'll see you all in the next one, and
farewell, good hunter. May you find your worth in the waking world.